Will I be accepted? That is the question. Hi, I'm Elisa LaShell, the Empowerment Specialist, and I'm so excited about this new vlog series that I am doing called the Rejection Reality. I wanted to do this vlog because so many times rejection is the elephant in the room. We do not like to talk about rejection. Why? It's pretty simple. There is no rejection without an offering. And it's only when we offer something of ourselves that we give somebody the power to say they don't accept it. And now we're left to deal with rejection. But a lot of us don't do a good job handling rejection. And so I wanted to use this time to talk a little bit about what exactly is rejection and how exactly do we handle it. Now, let's start by defining rejection. And I have 4 ways that rejection can manifest itself. One way is the definition of rejection is the refusal to have, to take, or even to recognize. Now, here's an example of that. I used to work for a very large nonprofit, and we would travel worldwide. And one time we were in South Africa, and we had to go to training where they talked to us about some things, some protocol, things we could do and could not do. And one of the things that they said to us was when it was time to eat, whatever we were offered, we were to accept it, whether or not we could recognize what was on the plate, whether it smelled like we wanted it to smell, whether we wanted it or not, accept it. And they said that the reason that we should do that was because it was a form of rejection. Even if we were polite and said no thank you, that was still a very, very sensitive thing. And so that was something that we could not do. We were told you just accept it. And so even now when I travel to events, and I don't usually eat before I have to sing or speak, but if there is breakfast or something offered to me, I still accept it and I put it on my plate, and I have to say, maybe I can't eat it all right now, or maybe I'll just take some juice and some fruit, but I do not refuse, because rejection is a very real reality for everybody. Even with kids, when we try to give them medicine, this form of rejection is when they simply say, without tasting it, without knowing the benefits of it, no, I don't want it. Get that away from me. It's rejection. And then that rejection about refusing to recognize. We have all been in situations where there are people that simply refuse to acknowledge your presence. They will see you at the table. They will see you at the event. They will see you at the party. And they will just refuse to acknowledge that you are even there. They'll do this by talking to the person next to you, talking over you, asking questions that they know you know the answer to, but just not even directing it. That is a form of rejection. That is saying, I will not acknowledge your presence. The second type of rejection is the refusal to accept. That's simply saying, I will not acknowledge this as true. Now, if we were to be real, we deal with this a lot when it comes to hearing things that we really are not ready to accept right now. Somebody can tell you all that your children are misbehaving in school, and you can say, not my sweet baby. No, no, no. I refuse to accept that. That is, I reject the notion that she could even be acting up. Or we've seen it in cases of cheating spouses. People might say, listen, I saw so-and-so at this place. As a matter of fact, here's a picture. Here's what somebody, nope. I refuse to accept it. That is a form of rejection, just simply saying, I'm not going to accept it at all. The next kind is to discard as useless or unsatisfactory. And when you discard something as useless or unsatisfactory, that's almost the worst kind of rejection. I'll tell you where we've seen this at. If you've ever watched Waiting to Exhale, Angela Bassett played the role of a wife, and her issue with the dissolution of her marriage wasn't just that her husband had mistreated her. It wasn't even just that he had found somebody new. Her issue, and Mary J. Blige came out with a song for the movie that was called Not Gonna Cry. what her issue was that he had taken her time, her 11 years where she sacrificed things, her 11 years where she had helped him build his empire, where she had raised her children, where she had put her own desires and her own purpose on pause because she wanted to support him. He decided none of that mattered anymore. He thought, it wasn't enough. It wasn't good enough. It was useless. It didn't satisfy what he needed. And so now he was going to get something better. That was the point where she broke, because he wasn't just saying, I don't want you anymore. He was saying, what you have given me, what I once had taken from you, I've decided that it's useless and it's unsatisfactory to me. And that is a large form of rejection that we deal with in our reality. The last type of rejection is to cast off or to eject. We see that naturally when we eat or drink something that does not agree with our body. We do not have to sit around and wait for our body to say, that's not it. I can't handle that. I don't want it. There's something wrong. And our body will, in and of its own self, eject that, cast that off from us. It's almost like an outward way of refusing to acknowledge. That type of rejection is, when you shrug something off, when somebody goes to touch you or you go to touch somebody else and they cast your hand off like, whoa, what are you doing? That is rejection. That is a very, very physical, outward, aggressive way of saying, I don't want you around me. I don't want you touching me. I don't want you with me. And so now that we've defined rejection, the big question is, how do we handle it? There is an American musician and film writer by the name of Fred Durst, and he said a quote. He was quoted as saying something that I thought was pretty powerful. And he said, when I look back on my knee-jerk reactions, I realize now that I just should have taken a breath. Which leads me to my point, how do we handle rejection? I'm going to talk a little bit about the difference between a reaction and a response, because in the reality of rejection, it makes all the difference in the world. Reactions, they're typically quick, they're instant, and they're without thought. We don't think about things. When we react to something, all of a sudden something happens. We're not thinking about it. We just quick. Our child is running out in the road. We grab them, we run. We're not looking and we're not thinking about our own safety. We're reacting. A lot of times reactions can be tense and aggressive. We hear something happening that we feel like threaten us emotionally, and all of a sudden, we're overthinking it. We've already come up with a scenario that this is why this happened. They must not love me. They must think this. All of a sudden, it's driven by beliefs, biases, prejudices that we have in our conscious mind. A lot of times we said, well, I just did that without thinking. But in actuality, there was something going on in the back of our minds. There was some kind of consequences that we've put there. There was something that we said, there's something about that. There's something that doesn't make sense there. There's something that's not quite right there. Something doesn't feel right with that, but we put it on the back burner. And so when it comes time to handle rejection, if we react, it's driven by some personal prejudices, some biases, some things that were going on in the back of our minds that we haven't really thought all the way through. We just kind of have them there in the subconscious, and now we're just reacting off of them. It's also based in the moment. It's not considerate of long-term effects. When I react to something, I'm just kind of flip talking. I'm talking out of my head. I'm not thinking about what my words or what my actions might be doing in the long term. And the last thing is, reactions are sort of a defense mechanism. We go kind of into our survival instincts when we start reacting to stuff. All of a sudden, we just start thinking, I better get them first, or I better take the first hit, or I better go ahead and shut this down before it gets any worse. We go ahead and we say, I need to defend myself. I need to survive. And so we react in a way that sometimes doesn't have the best benefits. Now, on the other hand, there is a response. When we respond to rejection, number one, we're answering, we're replying by using our words or by using our actions. When we respond, we are able to be thorough, we are able to be calm, and we are able to be non-threatening. We're not in a fight or flight scenario. We're not tense and ready to just jump on somebody. We're laid back because we've had time to think. The other thing about responses is it's ecological. That means it's not just thinking about ourselves, but other people that might be involved or close to us in this situation. It weighs long-term effects. It's not just getting in the heat of the moment, and it allows you to stay in character. When you respond instead of react, you can keep your core values. If you're not a person that gets irate and starts cursing and throwing things, but when you react, that's what you do. When you decide to respond instead, you're able to stay in character and say, wait a minute, I don't do a lot of yelling and screaming. So let me think this thing through so that I may respond. And a lot of times when there is rejection presented to us, all the difference in the world of how we handle it comes down to whether we're going to react to it or whether we're going to respond to it. Now, I'll give you 4 realities of rejection. Number 1, the truth of the matter is we don't want everything and everybody, and everything and everybody doesn't want us either. And so, if it's okay for us to say, I don't want that. Whether it's food, whether it's a person, whether it's a job, whether it's an opportunity, then we have to know that on the other side of that, there are people, there are things that are opportunities that don't want us either. And that is simply a reality. The second thing is there are some things that should be rejected. There are some things, just like I was talking about putting things in our body, there are some things that are not good for us and should be rejected. There are some relationships that are not good for us and should be rejected. There are some situations that we find ourselves in that are not healthy, that are causing disdain to us, that are causing us to be at a mental place that is not healthy. They should be rejected. So all rejection is not bad rejection. Thirdly, rejection gives us the opportunity to reevaluate ourselves. It gives us the opportunity to reevaluate our values. When we are rejected, we get to say, wait a minute. Why was I rejected? Was I too aggressive? Did I not know everything that I was supposed to know? Was I not dressed appropriately? Did I come across as needy? What was it about me? Or was there anything about me that caused me to be rejected? Because the last thing, number 4, is sometimes rejection has nothing at all to do with us. Sometimes we're rejected, or there is a rejection because there's bad timing. Sometimes there's rejection because the other person isn't really sure of what they want, and so they can't accept anything because they just really don't know. Sometimes we're rejected because there is an insecurity, and that person or that situation it might perhaps be a little bit intimidated by what we bring to the table. And so the reality is rejection is something that we are going to have to deal with for the rest of our lives. But how we respond to it, how we decide to handle it, whether we react or whether we respond, makes all the difference in the world. I'm Elisa LaShell, and I want you to realize that there is reality behind rejection. I hope you all enjoy it.